Did you see this message on here about the camera for Graham? We've got Graham Renz is with us from the Show Me Institute.
And I like Frank's new system of flashing lights at me.
Oh, in the background? Yeah.
I didn't see that.
Because Graham is, what, about 6'3", am I guessing?
6'4".
6'4", okay.
I told him to get my good side.
So we had Chris Arps in here earlier who's like 5'7", so we had to tilt the camera up. I'm just kidding, Chris, because I know he's probably listening. I don't know how tall he is. Yeah. But anyway, Graham is tall, and we had the camera aimed at his chest, and you probably couldn't even see his head in the picture. In case you're watching the studio camera, by the way, for those wondering. So Graham Renz in from the Show Me Institute. Great to have you.
It's a pleasure to be here.
He said to me when he walked in, he goes, hey, when I'm talking about small news today with all this other stuff going on, but it's not really, because you've got a elected official in the city is the one that filed this lawsuit over renovations at Scottrade. What's this all about?
Yeah, so it's not little. It's $100 million or
so.
So for folks who may have been following the news, the Board of Aldermen earlier this year approved $65 million in bonds to renovate the Scottrade Center. Go to things, some mechanical stuff, but new scoreboard, new sound system, new lighting, all sorts of stuff. And just last week, one alderwoman, previous former state rep, and I believe a former city treasurer, filed suit against the city of St. Louis and the ownership of the Blues, saying that this is unconstitutional. The issuing of these bonds is essentially the city giving taxpayer money to a private entity, just handing it over. And they claim that the terms of the lease between the city and the Blues, more or less, shows that the Blues, or whoever is using the facility, is got to be the one who pays for the upgrades. And I looked at the lease. I'm not a lawyer. That's certainly what it looks like it says.
It says, okay.
And so they're saying, you know what, the city really doesn't own this legally. The Blues own it. They should be responsible for upgrading this. That happened last week, and just earlier this week, the Blues filed a countersuit against the city of the treasurer, the comptroller of the city of St. Louis, saying, the Board of Aldermen approve this bond issue. You've got a duty to sign it, to execute this. Stop, getting in the way. Give us our money, more or less. So we've got this issue blowing up. It was controversial when it happened, and now it's blowing up with lawsuits. And who knows how they'll turn out? But it's certainly going to be not less than a couple months until things get settled.
It was kind of controversial when they first pitched the idea. A lot of people felt that more taxpayer money shouldn't be used to support a professional sports team that was complaining, sort of like the Rams did, that the facility was not up to par with some of the other facilities in the business. At least they didn't threaten to leave necessarily, although I think the hint was there that we need to be able to compete with these other NHL teams.
Yeah, so that's always a threat. Or at least an implicit threat.
Implicit, right.
But, just this April, the city of St. Louis voters decided, we don't want public money going to stadiums. With the issuance of the bonds for the Scottrade Center, there was no public vote, right? So this was done at the Board of Aldermen. This was just done by public officials. But I think we're seeing, and these lawsuits are kind of bringing up, right? Like, it's good to see that some public officials are taking as big of an issue as they can with just the handing out of taxpayer dollars to a private interest. With interest on the bonds, it's going to be over $100 million. We're talking. The city's credit rating is going down the drain. It's been downgraded twice this year. They don't have enough money to pay their bills. They just passed a sales tax. They're looking to pass 2 more sales taxes. The sales tax rate would be about 9.8%, almost 10%. And that's before all the little special taxing districts. So we're taxing people to death. And then we're looking to spend hundreds of millions of dollars building stadiums, renovating stadiums that it looks like the Blues should be paying for, but the Blues pay $1 a year to be in there, and they pay no property taxes. So they're in there pretty much for free. They get it for $50. 50 years for $50, and they're asking taxpayers to renovate it for them.
So just so people understand, when a Board of Aldermen decides to approve the issuing of bonds, it is a debt issue, right? That somebody else comes in and buys the bonds, and that money basically finances the construction, and then slowly those bonds get paid back.
Yep, and they'd be paid back with all sorts of city revenues. One source of which would be general revenue, so all city taxpayers would be paying for this.
Right.
But I hear some people say, you know what, Graham, I get it, but the city owns this. The city owns. You look at the they own the title to the property. They own it. They need to fix it up just like any decent landlord would. And I think that makes a lot of sense. But you know what? The tenants in this case, the tenants pay $1 a year, and they don't pay property taxes. So if I were a landlord and I'm getting $1 a year, or I'm getting essentially nothing, it's like I have squatters in my building, and they want the upgrades they want are scoreboards, sound systems, not just pipes and mechanical stuff. So it's not just keeping the building in good shape. It's sprucing it up.
Mechanically, right.
It's building a beer garden. It's putting new facades up. So if I were a landlord, I wouldn't want to pay to put flat screen TVs in a house that squatters were in and weren't paying me rent in. So I think it's good that we're going to take a look at this again, that the courts are going to look and see if there's any violations. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know what'll happen, but I'm glad that city officials are doing what they can to keep taxpayers' interests at the front and not private businesses.
Yep. Graham Renz with us from the Show Me Institute. Before I let you get out of here, just a quick update. I talked about this a couple of weeks ago. The airport in the city had fought tooth and nail over Uber and Lyft being able to deliver or pick up people from the airport. The exception to that was the Uber limo service, basically the black service, I think they call it, with the bigger cars. They had reached some sort of an agreement on that. But now the city has come to its own agreement. It's just that Uber hasn't signed off on it yet, right?
Yeah, that's right. So one what they call transportation network company, it just means there's these ride-sharing firms. Lyft has agreed to these fees. There would be a $3 pickup and a $3 drop-off fee. So if you're going to or from the airport with one of these ride-sharing services, you're going to be paying an extra $3 no matter what, and it goes right to the airport. And it's not to boost safety or any of these other, things we were told before, which were, way overblown. It's just money to go to the airport because the airport wants it. But if you pay through the airport, you pay for the airport when you buy a ticket, right? When you're flying, we're just slapping on more fees on people because we can. And because
since they lost the hub, they're dying for business out there. They need to figure out revenue streams. They had this deal in place with the taxi cab commission, and then this new service came along that they weren't getting their cut.
Yeah, taxis, they can hang out at the airport and they're guaranteed a ride, and that's kind of their turf, right? And then you've got these companies like Uber and Lyft that are. I don't know if listeners have taken them. I prefer them much more to a traditional taxi just because it's more convenient, it's cleaner, it's faster, it's cheaper. Let the market decide. If taxis are great, that's fine. Yeah. But taxis, they line up there, and they didn't like Uber and Lyft infringing on their turf more or less. So they've tried to keep them out. The legislature more or less legalized them this past session, and so if they can't outlaw them, they're going to fine them. And so unfortunately, that's what the city's going along with.
What a shame. I think it's a shame. Uber hasn't agreed to it yet. When I reached out to them a week or two ago, they said that they couldn't give me anything on camera, so I'm guessing they're still in the negotiating stage on this, if there's anything left to negotiate. Or you can just take an Uber to the airport and hug your driver when you get there, and how the hell will they know the difference? Really? That's
I think they're using some technology stuff. It's called a geofence if you want to go down on it. But they'll find you more or less.
No,
you can give them a hug anyway. But unfortunately, I think they'll know what you're doing.
All right, Graham Renz, thank you.
It's a pleasure, Mark.
I encourage people to go to the website showmeinstitute.org and read up the latest on what they're working on over there. All right, get to more.